Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here virtually today. And as you see, I'm in the sanctuary of the church, as always. These opening words from, excuse me, Elie Wiesel. For me, every hour is grace. And I feel gratitude in my heart each time I can meet someone and look at his or her, and I'll add, or their smile.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Meadville in this very unusual year of Zoom services. During the service, people can enter their personal joys and sorrows in the chat room, and I'll summarize them later when we do joys and concerns. This month, our Share the Plate recipient is the Center for Family Services. And I want to mention that there are two items in the B&B and the upcoming Oracle. There's going to be tentatively a Christmas market craft show, December 4th, 5th, and 6th. We'll be selling timed tickets. And Cynthia has put in the B&B a list of canned and dried foods that are needed by people who don't have enough food at this time. Amelia has asked me to say, in this week of thankfulness, we are grateful to our members and friends who have pledged nearly $45,000 for 2021. But we need to hear from everybody if we are to find the money to plan our budget in support of our mission next year. All contributions are needed and welcome. I'm going to say the words as Alex lights the chalice. We light this chalice to bring light to our difficult days. We come to Thanksgiving at last in this tumultuous year. Let this light symbolize our gratitude and grace for all of those gifts, known and unknown, large or small, that make us thankful. Amy is going to be singing Love Will Guide Us. If you want to sing along, please remember to mute yourself. Thank you, Amy. Now, will you join me in our covenant and affirmation of mission? Our covenant is to be a loving, joyful community that nurtures spiritual growth, promotes compassion, social responsibility, and service in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Our mission is to be a faith community devoted to love and respect, reason and justice.
The reading is from Miss Manners, who, of course, I'm sure many of you know about and have read her very eloquent ways of explaining how we should be proper and polite to one another. And I thought you might be interested in this. Someone writes that they and their spouse are devoted Christians and want to say a blessing at the table. And this is for Thanksgiving, by the way. The in-laws do not want a Christian blessing, and so the young family says grace in the bathroom before the meals when they visit. Miss Manners responds, as much as she values family harmony, Miss Manners can't stand the thought of your saying mealtime grace in the bathroom or separating the thanks from Thanksgiving. Etiquette requires those who do not say grace to sit in silence while others do so. Provided you are not praying aloud that your in-laws be saved or that you be saved from them, they have no cause to take offense. Something to consider around saying grace. So we're going to have we'll have one question for breakout rooms after I speak. And it's very simple. It's what stories of Thanksgiving have given you a sense of grace and gratitude? Okay. Well, good morning again, everyone. Thank you for being here. Joyce, thanks for being the service leader this morning. And Amy and Kirsten, thank you for all the work that you do. And Amy, thank you for singing. I also want to mention, as I try to do every Sunday, that it's important for us to remember that the lands where these buildings are on used to be Seneca Nation lands before whites came to North America. Well, as I read and hear some of your comments earlier about what are you going to do for Thanksgiving, it's going to be a strange one. It's probably going to be unlike any other Thanksgiving we have had in our lives. The pandemic is still surging around the country. Medical experts have asked that we don't have visitors or visit others for Thanksgiving. I'm not going to go back to Oregon on Monday to Deborah's this week because of the heightened risk of COVID, and it's really going up rapidly there in Oregon, and she wished that we just couldn't take a chance. So how do we deal with this? How do we deal with a very strange, maybe unique Thanksgiving experience when we can't all get together? Maybe no extended family or friends for dinner, no after dinner walks or with everyone sitting to watch football on TV without masks or social distancing. And of course, no political discussions. How we're going to miss all those things. Now, last Thanksgiving, I spoke about grace and gratitude, and I'd like to say a few more words about grace this morning. My hope is that different aspects of grace, which is a very broad term, will help us with our Thanksgiving be a little bit less stressful and maybe real. We know what grace can mean. And as I said, it's very broad in its meanings. Everything from mercy to elegance, warm connections, dignity, polite presence, and so much more. So I'm going to share a story with you, and some of you have heard this story already. And I think it will give us several examples of grace for Thanksgiving that we might be able to employ. And the story I've called The Parable of the Corn Muffin. Most of you know that I grew up on a farm in Maine. We often had freshly baked corn muffins. Now, my foster mother, Selma, was an excellent cook, but cooking on a wood stove and baking in a wood stove was very tricky because you can never quite get the temperature right for an extended period of time. So she would always make corn muffins, especially for Thanksgiving. And I don't know how or why, but the corn muffins were as dry as the Sahara Desert in an extended drought. And part of Thanksgiving dinner every single year was corn muffins, along with turkey and all the fixings. So here was a Thanksgiving dinner, and I think it probably was when I was 8 or 10 or so. And this is what happened when the corn muffin incident occurred. I remember we had a number of guests, as usual, and my foster father, Robert, always wanted me to eat everything on my plate when we were at the dining table. And this was very serious. The repercussions were severe if I didn't eat everything on my plate, and that included corn muffins. So indeed, that day, I was served turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green beans, and yes, a corn muffin. Now, my foster father always insisted on saying grace, because that's what was done in the old days. We were supposed to bow our heads and close our eyes. No one was looking. I grabbed the muffin and stuck it under the dining room table. And the dining room table was over 100 years old, and it was one of those that had a lot of curlicues and carved notches under supporting the legs. So I pushed the corn muffin very quickly into one such opening and forgot about it. And apparently no one ever noticed that I had gotten rid of the corn muffin that quickly. So fast forward 10 or 15 years. I come home from college and I sat in the kitchen with my foster mother, and we caught up a bit and told stories of what was going on. And then she grabbed something from the kitchen table. She held it up and asked me if I knew anything about it. And there it was, a perfectly preserved corn muffin. She said that she'd done a weekly vacuuming of the downstairs and just happened to hit the table leg in such a way that the corn muffin finally came loose and crashed to the floor. Now, I vaguely remembered putting the corn muffin under the table, and it wasn't very much I could say because that's where I always sat when we were at dinner. So I couldn't deny it, but okay, that's probably my fault. She actually smiled a bit, which was unusual, and she tossed the corn muffin over to me. It didn't look any different from the day it had been cooked, except maybe a bit drier. Well, one of the things that grace includes is mercy. And I was very grateful that Selma did not chastise me for my corn muffin mishap 10 or 15 years earlier. And believe me, that was grace. So what are some other expressions of grace in this story, the parable of the corn muffin? And how might they help us with this particular Thanksgiving? This very strange one that we've never experienced before. Well, the first example of grace is, of course, the ritual of saying grace before the meal. And I would assume most of us have versions of saying grace, from the traditional to the perhaps unusual. So the first thing is, this Thanksgiving, I suggest that we say grace at our meal, even if no one is with us. That also means, by the way, that you don't have to run to the bathroom to say grace away from sensitive ears. No one will complain. Now, if you set up a Zoom call with relatives and friends, you can still say grace. In fact, others can as well. But think about the possibilities of having more people like we're doing this morning virtually to share our meal and our togetherness on Thanksgiving Day. How is that grace? Well, for one thing, everyone can participate. You could have everyone at the dinner tables virtually share what their grace would be. And the reason I'm talking about saying grace is that we are thankful, we should be thankful for a number of things. First of all, so far, in November 22nd, 2020, we have survived 2020, and the pandemic certainly counts. We can be thankful that the election is mostly over. What else has special thanks this year that we need to think about? Well, saying grace this year will be, at least for me, more meaningful because I'm going to take the time to appreciate how I've endured, adapted, and found new ways of living in isolation and community. Are there benefits to a virtual Thanksgiving dinner on video? Well, for one thing, just seeing the faces of others. I mean, I see your faces this morning and I think how wonderful to see you again and to be together, at least in sight and in hearing. And that's a start. Now, if there is one virtue to a virtual Thanksgiving dinner on video, is suppose people want to start talking about politics and the election. Well, you have a very easy option here. The option is to discover a serious problem with a Wi-Fi connection and regretfully sign off because there's no way you can continue having the conversations. So the first form of grace is saying grace and understanding who you're saying grace for. The second form of grace comes from our opening words by Elie Wiesel. For me, every hour is grace. And I feel gratitude in my heart every time that I can meet someone and look at his or her or their smile. So I'm going to call this second type of grace the grace of community. If you have Thanksgiving meal with others this week, in person or virtually, to spend some time appreciating their presence. And hopefully there will be smiles, along with pass the corn muffins, please. Another way of appreciating the grace, the presence of others, virtually or otherwise, is to acknowledge their absence. Even if you have a virtual dinner gathering this week, it's still not the same thing as being in person. And I think after eight months, we're becoming more and more aware of that at this congregation. But we do what we can. And one of the rituals that a rabbi friend of mine in South Carolina suggested about how do we have others present with us even if they can't be there. What he suggested was a ritual that he based on Passover. And if any of you know the Passover ritual of leaving an empty chair for Elijah the prophet. So what my rabbi friend said, leave a couple of empty chairs at the table where you eat. Have plates, silverware, and a glass by each empty chair. And this is not for Elijah in the Jewish tradition, but is reminding that hopefully those chairs will be filled next Thanksgiving after a year's absence when the new normal has come back. Now, I did ask my rabbi friend if this was cultural misappropriation. And he laughed and assured me, no, it's not. But he also said, I'm a Reformed Jewish rabbi, after all. He also suggested that even if we're alone or just with our immediate family, that we raise a toast to all those that we will not see this year in person. So those are some ways of having grace in community and being reminded how important our communities are for us. Now, the third type of grace at our Thanksgiving meal is going to be represented by that poor, mistreated corn muffin. No Thanksgiving can be without food of some sort. So what's going to be on your table this coming Thursday? Turkey? Well, maybe not a 15-pound turkey for one person. What about vegetables and casseroles? What about dessert? Can we possibly avoid dessert? And what about vegetarian and vegan offerings? Now, for me, my dinner is going to be simple. It'll be whatever I have at home to cook. It'll be, for me, salmon, some broccoli, mashed potatoes, and no dessert. That's what we used to do in lean economic times, especially living in the country, when we used whatever was available and could not afford to go to the market. That poor corn muffin is a reminder, as my foster parents said many, many times, that we should eat all of our food and not let it go to waste. And so grace, after all, is appreciation for the food that comes to us, even if it's just for one or two or a few people. And one way to do this is to take some time and appreciate the food by using mindful eating practices of not gobbling everything down as quickly as we can. Because part of grace is appreciating all the tasks that brought the food to us. Grace is remembering the dishes that others bring to a Thanksgiving meal when we can meet in person. Grace is anticipating next Thanksgiving when the world is different again, and hopefully we can get together as a group. So I'm going to end with a sample of grace, and I'll put it in the B&B this week in case anyone wants to use it. It's a form that a retired colleague of mine, Maureen Kaloran, who's from Canada, by the way, wrote and sent to me. This is what she wrote. Spirit of life, be at this table. Make us conscious of our good fortune in this gathering and the food we are about to share. Help us to remember that our time in this community is brief and precious. Give us gratitude. Give us hope. Give us peace. Give us grace. May it be so. Amen. So this is the time when we will go to our breakout rooms. Again, what stories of Thanksgiving have given you a sense of grace and gratitude, or you can really talk about anything else that's on your minds.
This is the time where we share our joys and concern. No one has a chat room, but we have a joy for Cora Violet Bullock McGinty, who was born on 11/13, weighed 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Erin, Ilsa, and Mark welcome their beautiful little girl, and I think we should help them welcome her. Hopefully she'll come to church every once in a while when we join church. Please light a candle in your heart for all of the joys or the sorrows that are too personal to talk about, and know that you are not alone.
So let's take a short time to extend that time of silence for reflection on the joys and sorrows we've heard, especially towards Thanksgiving, a new life, and of course, many new lives in the world every day. But think of what Thanksgiving really means to us, what we've experienced in the past, and those of our family members or friends who can't be with us this year. Extending our best wishes, our hopes, and our kindness and love to all those we know at the time of Thanksgiving, and giving thanks for the life that we have. Let's take some time of silence, and then I will ring a bell.
As we extinguish this chalice flame, let us lift the burdens of this year and set them down. May our Thanksgiving be bountiful, not simply food or beverage, not the worry about guilt having eaten too much. May our Thanksgiving remind us that those we love are with us in spirit and grace.
Alrighty, at this time, I'm going to send you to your half-hour coffee hour breakout rooms. If you wish to change rooms at any time, you can either give me a chat and let me know you'd like to be moved, or you can simply come back to this main session and let me know. Thank you.